Hey everybody, welcome back. We are talking about interventions and strategies today. This module will cover chapter 8 in your text, so please be sure to follow along in your textbook as we go through this lecture. So just to kind of start thinking about interventions, this is what you're going to do in your program. So a goal without a plan is just a wish. And I love that saying because we have to plan for success, right? And understanding what we're actually going to do, the activities that help achieve our goal, is so important, almost just as important as developing those mission goals and objectives for our programs. So let's get started. All right, so our intervention is our program. Like I said, this is what we're actually doing. So planners have to decide the most appropriate ways to reach and attain the goals and the objectives that we've set forward for our population, right? So we must adopt, adapt, or design activities to meet these objectives and these goals. So the set of activities that encourage the most effective, and this helps us reach our outcomes and our objectives, and efficient. We need to think about our resources. What do we have readily available? How much money do we have to spend? We can't be buying all of our participants computers or maybe Fitbits. We have to think about what is attainable with the resources that we're given for our programs to reach our desired outcomes. So these are our planned activities or strategies that make up our program, our interventions. All right, so let's talk about some terminology when we speak about interventions in our programs. So multiplicity is the number of strategies that make up our program. So we're not just going to do one thing, right? We're not just going to host educational sessions where we go on and on about the risks of skin cancer, right? That's probably not going to be effective. It's not going to change behaviors. So there has to be a number of different strategies working towards these outcomes. So programs that contain several strategies are more likely to have an effect, more likely to be successful. Strategies that are more effective are often aimed at multiple levels of influence. So we talked about that socio-ecological model. This is also called the systems approach. But remember, talking about the environment, talking about policies, talking about health education, all of these factors, working in the intrapersonal level, interpersonal level, community level, right? And so working towards each of these levels makes your program much more successful. So that's multiplicity. Now, dose is the number of program units delivered. So this is how many different sessions and things that we may include within our programs. This is the dose, so the number. So let's look at an example. We have a program to prevent skin cancer. So multiple activities, this is that multiplicity. We may have educational classes. This is great. A great way to provide information, work on that intra and interpersonal level if they're community-based classes. We may include text messages for those at high risk, right? And then we may have a radio or TV PSAs, public service announcements. So we're working at different levels, right? Community level, more broad levels, and using different strategies to reach our population. Then the number of units, so the dose. How many times would we offer these classes? How many text messages? One text message isn't probably going to be enough, right, to change behavior. How many times would the PSA run? If we only put one radio PSA out, the people we're going to reach is probably going to be limited. So we need to have it multiple times, perhaps multiple times during the day, right? People are at work often between 8 and 5, so maybe we could hit that morning rush hour traffic time, hit a larger amount of the population. Just depends, right? Or maybe we're going to try and reach those workers that work in the sun all day, that are listening to the radio during those work hours. Just depends, right? And so those are the number of units and how we're going to use those strategies. So how do we decide what strategies we want to use, right? How do we know what's going to work best? So what are the best practices for addressing the health problem? Can we look at what's been done previously that's worked well for addressing this health problem? What strategies led to successful outcomes, right, in those other programs? We want to be meeting those mission goals and objectives that we created. So what makes sense, right? We need those things to connect. It all becomes this big picture, and it all flows and works well together, right? So we have to create these activities that match what we want to achieve, right? We have to match those to what our mission goals and objectives are. And we also, though, want to make it appealing to our population, right? If we have a group of middle school boys, we're not going to have them probably sit around and share their feelings. They're probably not going to want to do that. Or they're probably not going to want to like paint pictures. Some of them might, but for our priority population, that might not make the most sense and be the most appealing. So picking activities that make sense for our population, and then also thinking about the barriers. What could be some of the barriers in these activities? Would it be something that they would feel uncomfortable with? Especially if you're working with younger populations, adolescents, teenage years, you know, these people aren't really open and sharing and very good at communication, and so reaching them on their own level, right? So reaching and appealing to that priority population and addressing any barriers that we might have in reaching those goals and creating those activities. All right, so let's break down the types of strategies. So a single program, like I said, may use several different types of strategies. Different strategies may be implemented at different levels of influence, right? And we already talked about that, the socio-ecological approach. So the CDC lists very different and several types of classifications for strategies. The ones that are highlighted here, health communication, health education, and others, we're going to spend the most time talking about. And these are probably going to be the ones that are most applicable to your programs that you're developing. However, it's important to understand these others and how they play into different interventions and different programs. And these categories are not independent of each other. So like health communication and health education often kind of fall into the same categories. Now we do separate them here, and it'll make more sense once I describe what they are. But just know that sometimes health education falls within health communication and vice versa. So they're not independent, right? They often play into each other. These strategies often flow together. Okay, so let's break down some of these strategies. So our first is health communication. So the communication strategies are designed to inform and influence individuals and communities to make decisions that affect their health. Health communication is often a part of almost all interventions at some level or another, and they're useful in reaching many of our goals and objectives that we have set forth for ourselves. They have a high penetration rate, they're cost effective, and they're often less threatening, right? We can give this information to everyone, and it doesn't necessarily mean that we're pushing it down someone's throats, making them change, right? We're just simply giving them the information that we hope would help make them give them better decision-making skills. So let's look at the different communication channels, because we can aim them at the intrapersonal level. This is one-on-one. Perhaps this is a nurse talking to the patient at discharge, right? That's a communication channel. That's one-on-one, individual. Interpersonal, these might be small classes, right? Small group sessions. Organizational and community, these might be like newsletters. Let's say your gym puts together a newsletter and gives you information about pre-diabetes or the risks of hypertension, things like that. And then mass media, you can think about texting and driving campaigns. And we have some really good videos here. So refer back to the actual downloadable PowerPoint and open up these links. Y'all, these are amazing. This first one was put together. It's kind of like a skit, but it's put together to show you just how impactful texting and driving is and how fast it can be. And it kind of stops and shows you how it could happen and the effects. The next one is an actual personal story about texting and driving. And these are so impactful because it kind of breaks down that wall of thinking that, oh, it can't happen to me, especially if you can connect with that individual. So this young girl, she's in her early 20s. So this often pulls on those heartstrings of those same individuals at that age, because she was actually in a texting and driving accident that configured her face and gave her many health consequences from it. So this is a communication tool for the masses, right? This is that mass media health communication, just those risks of texting and driving. So check those out, because I think they're really good examples of health communication strategies at that higher level. But remember that they can be, like, we can tell someone one-on-one about texting and driving. That's also health communication. These are examples of those higher level mass communication skills. All right, so they're delivered in many different ways, as you can kind of hear as I'm talking. We can deliver them through computers, internet, tailored emails. Emails are great for people to get health communication delivered to them. Video and audio teleconferencing. Now you can even have like doctor's appointments online, right? But health coaching sessions online, therapy sessions online. There's so many things health communication can be delivered that way. The telephone. Think about health helplines. So they have like suicide hotlines. If someone is feeling like they need some help and may feel at risk for harming themselves and or others, this is a great example of a telephone communication. Outreach, called by a health educator or a counselor. So a good example here is many insurance companies actually hire health educators to call the individuals within their health plans to help decrease the amount of money that they're spending in healthcare, right? To try and keep these people healthy or to prevent their health conditions from worsening. So health educators reach out often by telephone to provide health communication. We talked about mass media. Social media is a huge one now. Also in person or printed materials. Think newsletters, flyers, articles, all of those. All right, health education. We're moving on from, sorry guys, let's go back here. Moving on from health communication to health education. And as I mentioned before, sometimes these kind of fall within one another, but health education is providing any planned educational sessions. So they're providing knowledge and skills in a formal setting. So these are planned opportunities, right? Health communication can sometimes be not be planned. Often it is, but these are sessions that are planned. Perhaps there are classes or seminars, workshops, different types of courses, whether they're face-to-face or online. And these educational activities often include different types of materials and equipment. They may have technology included or different printed educational materials. There are different types of teaching strategies. Just as there are different type of learning, there's different type of strategies to meet those learning needs. So you might even think to yourself, like, I learn best by reading, right? Or I learn best by audio, by listening. So these are different strategies that you can use in health education. So different debates. Maybe people learn best by actually hearing two sides of an argument. Demonstrations, like, is it a cooking demonstration? Someone might get healthy eating and healthy cooking by just reading the recipe, but some people need to see it, right? How do I actually cook these vegetables? Role playing, this is a great one, especially in different types of behavior change modification. Role playing different scenarios is helpful, or even curbing anxiety and things are great in role playing. Peer coaching, this includes like motivational interviewing and things like that. Teaching strategies and techniques can be inside of the classroom or outside of the classroom, right? Different community resources, field trips, health fairs. You'll see here we have a link at the bottom. This is taking you to Church Health Center, and they have a well education website, and it tells you all